Catherine will speak on my behalf. Mrs. Meghan Markle has repeatedly written to the palace seeking our intervention in the Epstein matter, but, like Andrew, she must face her own consequences.
The palace did not stay silent this time. It gave a clear answer, and with it, any hope Meghan had of reconnecting with the monarchy took a major hit. King Charles rejected her latest request for renewed royal access, and the message from the palace was direct. The door was not paused, delayed, or under review. It was closed. Behind that decision stood years of tension, silence, and unresolved conflict. Meghan reportedly knew the answer the moment she read it. She looked over the palace response more than once, hoping there might be room for a different meaning. There was not. The request sent through official channels had been denied. Buckingham Palace confirmed she would not return to any formal royal role. This was not just a personal setback. It was the institution making its position clear. For weeks, representatives had reportedly been in contact with palace aides, looking for limited access, select invitations, and some sign that relations were improving. Charles reviewed the final request carefully, knowing the decision could also affect Harry. Even so, he concluded that restoring royal access was not the right move, and the request was turned down. Charles set the file down, exhausted. This was not a victory. It was an acknowledgement that something had broken, and he no longer believed words could fix it. William's influence was felt before the decision was finalized. Reports suggested the prince had been consulted, and that detail changed everything. He did not need to speak publicly. His concerns were already reflected in the final response. The palace used firm language, and aides quickly understood the message. This was not a temporary pause or a situation under review. It was a clear boundary. As the news spread through palace corridors, one question kept coming up. What exactly had Meghan requested that led to such a firm rejection? Because this was never only about access. It was about pride, old wounds, trust, and the pain of being told a family door would not reopen. Meghan remained hopeful that one final conversation could change the outcome. Charles stood on the other side, carrying the responsibilities of the crown, while William watched quietly, aware that any major concession could reignite past tensions. The response hit hard. Meghan was not reportedly asking to return as a full-time working royal. Instead, she wanted something more limited but deeply meaningful: select family events, carefully managed appearances, and a sign that she was no longer being kept at a distance. For Charles, the issue looked very different. Every decision carried consequences, and the weight of that responsibility was impossible to ignore. The king wanted to be seen as a father willing to forgive, but he also had to protect the monarchy, the system of royal duties, public trust, and stability that goes beyond any family dispute. According to reported accounts, Charles told a senior aide that the decision was painful because it could push Harry even further away. There was no anger in his words, just the weariness of a man balancing family feelings with royal responsibility. William's influence became harder to overlook when aides compared the final response with views he had reportedly shared in earlier private discussions. The tone was calm, but the message was clear. A limited return for Meghan could reopen old tensions, create fresh challenges for the family, and pull the monarchy back into unwanted controversy. William had seen years of public pressure, criticism, and family strain. He was not looking for payback. He wanted firm boundaries. Charles understood that concern and knew why his son was unwilling to shift his position. Camilla quietly supported the decision, but reportedly worried about what could happen next. She understood how quickly private disagreements can become public battles and knew another royal controversy could bring new challenges. Meanwhile, Meghan was left staring at the response. The rejection was not just a denied request. It appeared to signal that any remaining hope of rebuilding that connection had faded away. Yet the real reason behind Charles's refusal reportedly did not start with Meghan's final request. It traced back to an earlier incident that changed palace frustration into deep concern. Every major family dispute has a moment people remember for years. For Meghan and the royal household, that moment was said to come during a private Windsor remembrance reception, where a quiet conversation reportedly took a tense turn. An aide appeared shaken, William's expression changed, and trust became a much bigger issue than reconciliation. Meghan reportedly felt excluded after not being included in a family-only balcony appearance. In royal tradition, these appearances are often seen as public displays of unity, so being absent can carry symbolic weight. To her, the omission felt deliberate, and the disappointment quickly grew. After the reception, Meghan reportedly questioned palace aides about the decision and why she had been left out. What began as a discussion soon became a source of concern for some in the room. William viewed the situation through a different lens. After years of public tensions and family disagreements, he reportedly saw the confrontation as a sign that old disputes were still unresolved. The timing also mattered. The exchange happened after a solemn event, when emotions were already high and a respectful atmosphere was expected. According to the account, one aide appeared visibly unsettled by the discussion. Meghan may have felt she was standing up for herself, but William reportedly saw the situation as another warning sign. That difference in perspective widened the divide. Charles watched from across the room and immediately recognized the seriousness of the moment. He understood the importance of the occasion and the impact such tensions could have on the family. The reception was a private gathering held after a public ceremony, where family members reflected on loss, duty, and shared history away from public attention. That is why the timing carried so much weight. Charles had hoped the occasion might ease old tensions. Instead, he reportedly watched fresh frustration surface in a setting meant to bring people together. At first, he said nothing. He simply observed, realizing the issue had grown beyond a disagreement over invitations or appearances. The real question had become trust. According to reports, a palace aide later documented the Windsor incident in a confidential record prepared for senior royal review. The account reportedly captured the exchange in detail rather than minimizing it. One statement stood out: "You cannot erase me and expect silence." Those words reportedly caused concern within palace circles. While they may have been intended as self-defense, some interpreted them as a sign that deeper conflicts remained unresolved. That account eventually reached Charles, and the incident reportedly stayed in his mind. By the time Meghan's final request arrived, it carried not only the details of the proposal, but also memories of the Windsor dispute and the questions it had raised. The most important discussions happened behind closed doors, far from public view. Charles sat with the request before him, while William reportedly remained firm in his position. There were no grand speeches, only a difficult decision with major consequences. Knowing the issue could quickly become public, Charles chose to address it privately before rumors took over. In royal terms, such meetings are restricted discussions involving trusted figures, where sensitive decisions are considered before any public announcement is made. That mattered because a single leak could turn a private family dispute into a massive public story. It also mattered because Meghan's request was significant. She reportedly wanted invitations to select family events, limited communication through palace channels, and a public sign that relations had improved. William remained quiet until the discussion focused on the wording of the response. He understood why Charles struggled with the word rejected. It sounded harsh and final, but William reportedly believed softer language could create expectations that would never be fulfilled, leading to even more tension later. He reminded his father of the pressure the family had already faced over the years. According to reports, he stressed the importance of protecting family stability and avoiding situations that could reopen old conflicts. His tone was calm but firm, making his position impossible to miss. Charles reportedly removed his glasses and looked down at the file. He did not appear triumphant. Instead, the decision seemed to weigh heavily on him. To the king, the request was not only about returning to family events, it also brought back memories of past disputes and unsuccessful attempts to repair relationships. He understood that restoring palace communication access could blur boundaries the monarchy had worked hard to establish. After a long pause, Charles reportedly made his decision. "Then we close it." An aide immediately produced a prepared draft statement. That moment caught attention because it suggested some had already expected the outcome. The statement was measured and professional, but its message was unmistakable. The request would be denied, and the decision was meant to be final. The real surprise was not the rejection itself. It was how quickly the force behind that decision became visible. Once the statement left the room, it was clear this was more than a family disagreement. It was the monarchy acting with precision and purpose. Power within the royal system rarely arrives with dramatic announcements. It often shows through timing, wording, and the actions of those involved. Charles signed the decision, but many believed William's influence could be felt throughout the process. The authority belonged to the king, yet the future king's perspective appeared impossible to ignore. After approving the final wording, Charles reportedly sat in silence, staring at the page. The palace operation moved quickly from there. Senior aides, private officers, and communications teams began turning the decision into an official message. Speed mattered because delays could create rumors, speculation, and unwanted headlines. The response was designed to be clear rather than open-ended. Palace officials reportedly wanted to avoid confusion and prevent expectations from growing. The message was meant to settle the issue, not extend the debate. William's concerns remained consistent. According to reports, he believed even a limited return could create new challenges for the family and disrupt the stability the monarchy had worked to rebuild. After years of public scrutiny and family tensions, protecting that stability had become a major priority. He did not appear focused on punishment. Instead, he seemed resigned to the possibility that keeping firm boundaries could push Harry further away. Charles understood that reality, and by many accounts, Harry remained the most painful part of the entire decision. Rejecting Meghan reportedly meant more than denying a single request. For Charles, it also meant accepting that Harry could see the decision as a rejection of the life he had built. The king did not respond with dramatic speeches. He simply carried the weight of the choice in silence. William noticed that silence and reportedly softened his tone, but he did not change his position. He believed the monarchy could not keep revisiting the same issue simply because the emotions surrounding it remained unresolved. Camilla was not said to have played a direct role in the final decision. According to reports, Charles did not seek her final opinion before the response was approved. While she reportedly supported the outcome, the decision rested with the king and the heir. One phrase in the statement stood out: no further pathway to formal reintegration. In royal terms, that referred to any structured return to official recognition, duties, or privileged access. Palace staff reportedly understood the message immediately. The wording was polished, professional, and extremely clear. The statement left the room without drama, but its impact was significant. Charles approved it as monarch, while William's views were believed to have influenced the process. Beyond palace walls, however, the decision was likely to feel far more personal than procedural. Meghan reportedly received the response through private channels before any public announcement appeared. According to the account, she understood the message before reaching the final line. The wording offered no sign of negotiation and little room for interpretation. It signaled that the chapter she hoped to revisit would not be reopened. The response was delivered through a private communication channel before any public announcement. That mattered because it gave Meghan only a short window to process the decision before it became a public story. It also showed the palace wanted control over the message from the very beginning. The reply reportedly made one thing clear: requests involving future royal event attendance, direct palace communication, and any public sign of renewed royal acceptance had been denied. The wording left little room for doubt or negotiation. As she read the response, the reality of the decision reportedly became impossible to ignore. The absence of immediate emotion made the moment feel even heavier. Each line appeared to remove another possibility, closing off paths that had once seemed open. According to the account, Meghan had hoped for a limited opening rather than a full return. But the response suggested that even a small step toward renewed access was not being considered. The impact went beyond logistics. It touched questions of identity, status, and her place in a story that had remained under public scrutiny for years. Harry reportedly watched her reaction and immediately sensed the significance of the decision. He had seen frustration and disappointment before, but this silence felt different. He understood that the issue could affect not only family relationships, but also the ongoing divide between his past and present life. One phrase reportedly stood out: the family position is settled. To Meghan, those words may have suggested that the decision reflected a broader family stance rather than the view of one individual alone. Harry noticed her pause on that sentence and understood the message it carried. The phrase was more than a simple response. It was a family boundary expressed through formal palace language. The wording sounded calm, but the message underneath was clear: no more appeals, no more alternative routes, and no further attempts to change the outcome. Harry reportedly lowered his voice, but Meghan seemed to understand that the situation had moved beyond persuasion. A phone call would not reopen the door, and a public fight would not change the decision. For the first time, she appeared to realize that the rejection was not driven by anger. It was driven by determination and discipline. In that quiet moment, the story shifted. It was no longer just about a denied request. It became about accepting what had been lost and what could not easily be repaired. According to the account, the next major moment came through a private phone call. There were no aides, advisors, or official statements involved, just Charles and Meghan speaking after the decision had already been made. It was not a negotiation, and it was not a reconciliation. It was a final conversation following an outcome that had already been settled. Charles reportedly agreed to the call because he understood that a formal response could not fully address the personal impact of the decision. While the rejection carried royal authority, the emotions behind it were deeply personal. During the conversation, Meghan reportedly asked a direct question: whether there had ever been a version of her return that could have been accepted. Charles paused before answering. According to the account, he told her that trust could not be restored simply through announcements or official decisions. For Charles, trust reportedly meant more than forgiveness. It meant confidence that private family matters would remain private. According to the account, he no longer felt certain of that. He did not speak like someone trying to win an argument. Instead, he sounded like a father balancing personal feelings with royal responsibility. Meghan reportedly listened with controlled emotion, which made the conversation feel even more serious. Hearing the decision directly from the king carried a different weight than reading it in a formal response. One reported statement stood out: "This is not punishment, it is protection." That phrase appeared to explain the palace's position. The decision was presented not as retaliation, but as a way to protect family members and preserve stability within the monarchy. Meghan reportedly did not argue or make another appeal. Instead, she acknowledged the family's choice. That moment seemed to signal the end of her final effort to reopen the discussion. Charles understood the impact of the conversation, and Meghan understood the decision would not change. No aides or advisors stood between them. According to the account, it was one of the few moments in the dispute where both sides spoke directly without official intermediaries. When the call ended, Charles had offered a final explanation, but not a different outcome. Meghan was left to move forward with the decision as it stood. By the next morning, the story had become major news. Headlines, television coverage, and public debate transformed a private family matter into a national talking point. The issue no longer belonged only to those involved. It had entered the public spotlight. Reports described the palace confirmation as one of the clearest signs yet that Meghan would not be returning to an official royal role. The palace, however, largely avoided public back and forth, allowing the statement to speak for itself. That mattered because the rejection was no longer just a family response. It had become an official public position. The monarchy chose a firm statement over an emotional explanation, allowing the public to see the outcome without seeing the personal pain behind it. Meghan reportedly knew the decision was final, but seeing it transformed into headlines made it feel even more real. What had started as a private disappointment quickly became a public story filled with debate, speculation, and intense attention. The coverage focused on themes people could not stop discussing: family conflict, royal authority, pride, and the possibility of reconciliation coming to an end. According to the account, that public focus may have been especially difficult because it reduced a personal situation into a widely shared spectacle. One image reportedly stood out. Outside London's busy Victoria Station, newspaper boards displayed headlines about the palace decision. Thousands of commuters passed by, saw the story, and moved on. In that moment, a private family dispute became part of everyday public conversation. Charles reportedly struggled with that reality as well. After briefly watching coverage of the story, he turned it off. While he could handle the responsibilities of his role, seeing personal family matters discussed as national news was far more difficult. The reaction reminded him of a truth long associated with royal life: major decisions rarely stay private. The debate had grown beyond the individuals involved and turned into a broader question about family, duty, forgiveness, and the future of the monarchy itself. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered near the gates. As the monarch's official working residence, the palace has long been a place where people gather during major royal moments. Some watched quietly, while others recorded videos and shared their reactions. One woman reportedly looked toward the palace and said, "That sounded final." Her remark captured the feelings surrounding the decision. Meghan had been denied, Charles had held his position, and William's influence was widely discussed. The palace, meanwhile, allowed the statement to stand without further explanation. But beyond the public reaction, the deeper impact rested within the family itself. Headlines could report the decision, yet only those closest to it truly understood what it meant on a personal level. According to the account, the outcome reflected more than a rejected request. Charles chose what he believed was best for the monarchy. William prioritized stability and protection. Meghan faced the end of a possibility she may still have hoped for, while Harry remained caught between family ties and the life he had built elsewhere. For Charles, the decision reinforced a difficult reality. Royal responsibility often requires choices that place institutional stability ahead of personal feelings. He reportedly viewed the situation as a crossroads: reopen old disputes and risk fresh turmoil, or maintain firm boundaries and accept the consequences. When the noise finally faded, Charles was left with the weight of the decision. By many accounts, it felt like one of the most difficult choices of his reign. Charles reportedly placed the file away and rested his hand on the drawer. It was not the reaction of someone celebrating a win. It was the reaction of a father accepting the weight of a difficult decision. He understood that the choice could become a defining moment of his reign. For Charles, it reflected a belief that protecting the monarchy sometimes required painful compromises. The decision may have preserved stability, but it did not come without personal cost. Meghan reportedly came to terms with the outcome gradually. The response left little room for further appeals or renewed discussions. While her public story would continue, the possibility of a palace-supported return appeared to have reached its end. Harry reportedly understood the significance as well. The decision did not remove Meghan from public attention, but it seemed to close any formal path back into the royal family's official structure. William's role highlighted a larger shift. According to reports, he was no longer simply responding to royal controversies after they emerged. Instead, he was increasingly shaping how they were handled. Supporters viewed that as a sign of future leadership and a focus on protecting the institution. In the end, the decision represented a choice for clarity over uncertainty and stability over continued debate. It did not resolve every family issue or erase the past, but it signaled that the palace believed this chapter had reached its conclusion. What do you think about this royal drama? Was the palace right to stand firm, or should the door have been left open? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more updates and royal news. Thanks for watching.